Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Beautiful Muslimah Project. This is Monday again and time to talk about being a beautiful Muslimah that you are. Last week I talked about filters and the filters that we have around ourselves, the filters we have around people and situations. What I want to do now is look at other people's filters about us, how they're affecting us, and how we're allowing that to affect us by not understanding that that's what could be going on. So if you haven't watched last week's episode, do go back. It probably make more sense of what we're going to talk about this week. So when I talk about filters, it's the things that we've experienced or other people have experienced in general that have left them with a kind of filter with which they look through their now new experiences. So instead of seeing each new experience as it is a brand new experience, they see it as a continuation or a like situation of something from the past, sort of attributing to what's happening now to something that they've experienced before. So let's use the example of maybe a non-Muslim's perception of a Muslim. And this can really help us when we're doing our double work or we're dealing with people that are maybe being angry and hostile towards us. Their filter may be coming from the fact that they've never met a Muslim before, and all they've experienced of Muslims before is what they've seen on the television, what they've read in the paper, what they've heard in the news, maybe what they've heard other people saying. So they have this filter when they're now looking at every Muslim in this particular way and judging us in that particular way. So really a filter is like a prejudgment before we've even given the situation or the person an opportunity. So think about it, these days with the apps that we have with photos, if we take a photo, we can completely change the look and feel of that photo by putting a filter over it, right? So we can sort of put on the summer filter and so the colors will get warmer. We can put on the winter filter and it makes the colors get colder. And so it can kind of change the whole atmosphere of the photo. So that's what's happening when people are looking at you through a filter. So when you're approached by somebody and they're showing some kind of judgment or anger or something towards you that it's hard for you to understand where it's coming from because maybe you don't know that person or maybe you haven't done something that you feel justifies that. Realize that most likely that person is coming at you through a filter and that it's not you that they're seeing and it's not the situation that you're currently in that they're seeing, but their filtered view of it. When we understand that, it helps us not take what's happening personally. And that's the first thing. When we're not taking it personally, we're able to remain a lot calmer. We're able to think on our feet much better and come out with much better solutions to the situation. Even maybe being able to be light-hearted about it and turn the whole thing around from being a really tense situation into being a really loving, informative, helpful situation. It's all very possible. So that's the first thing about the filter is it helps us not take it personally. Secondly, it helps us see that other person as someone who is just interpreting things from a perspective that isn't our own and be less judgmental about them as well. And then that opens our heart to being part of the solution rather than more of the problem. When we do that, we have the opportunity to actually change that person's perspective. We could potentially even completely remove that filter that they're seeing things through so that they actually see things differently. So let's go back to the non-Muslim that has a really negative filter about Muslims suddenly meets us. So maybe they come up to you, in a really aggressive sort of way and go back to where you came from. And you might lightheartedly respond, sure, I'm heading back home once I finish my shopping. Or something that is light, that is not getting getting sucked into their negative emotion, and might challenge them in that moment that, hang on a minute, that wasn't the response I was expecting. And it just gives that moment in between thoughts for there to be a connection between you and that person, and open the door to a conversation. And then you have a normal conversation with them, and they start seeing Muslims as being normal people instead of the picture that they had in their head before. Does that make sense? So when we can understand that people can be coming at us from their own reality that's coming through their filters of their experience and what they know, and that it's not us that they're particularly necessarily seeing, it's their own perception, we don't take it personally, we don't judge them, and we can be part of the solution and engage them and connect with them in a really meaningful way that can potentially, in fact, completely change their perception and the way they look at things. How cool is that? I'd love you to try it out. I'd love you to think about that the next time you feel attacked by anyone. And it doesn't have to be a stranger. I mean, you can have this happening in your own close relationships, even with your parents or with your spouse or with your children. Just notice these things. And if you notice something and you change your thinking around it, like you look at it from that different perspective, now that you know this, and something changes, come back and share it and put it in the messages below this video. I always love to hear if someone's had a shift and something's working differently for them. Looking forward to seeing you next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.